A man can't mow his own damn lawn without getting a gun in his face? Welcome to Maple Grove Estates, where the grass must be exactly 3 inches tall, and the HOA president thinks she's the Queen of England with a Glock. My husband, a quiet, silver-haired Navy vet with a titanium hip and more medals than Karen's husband has fishing trophies, was cutting the lawn on a calm Saturday afternoon. He had no idea the HOA's private security, a rent-a-cop with a badge from eBay, was about to pull a weapon on him over a leaf blower violation. But Karen didn't know who she was messing with, and the moment that gun came out, the clock started ticking toward the day she'd lose everything. We moved to Maple Grove Estates last year, a quiet retirement community in Georgia. Picket fences, overwatered lawns, and folks who wave at you whether they mean it or not. After 25 years in this Navy, my husband just wanted a garden and peace. We thought we were getting Mayberry. What we got was Karenville. Karen, yes, that's her actual name, is the HOA president. Think clipboard, Chardonnay breath, and an obsession with rules that makes the IRS look laid back. Within the first 2 weeks, she fined us $50 for leaving our trash bin out 15 minutes past pickup. Then it was the unauthorized garden gnome. Then the shade of mulch wasn't neighborhood compliant. But it didn't stop there. Karen had recently pushed through a community safety initiative, basically hiring her nephew Kyle to be a HOA enforcement officer. No police training, no real authority, just a walkie-talkie, a fake badge, and way too much free time. And then came the incident. My husband was mowing the lawn with our own equipment on our own land within the approved mowing hours, mind you, when Kyle the cop screeched up in his raw, rusted-out Ford Explorer with security spelled wrong on the side. Apparently someone, I wonder who, had reported a noise complaint. He stormed out, hand on hip, shouting that my husband was violating decibel regulations and that he was resisting compliance. My husband, ever the calm sailor, didn't raise his voice. He turned off the mower and simply said, "Son, do you even know what a decibel is?" That's when Kyle pulled the gun. I ran outside screaming. Neighbors started poking their heads out. Someone called 911, a real emergency this time. And Karen? She stood at the end of her driveway, arms crossed, watching it all like she was directing a Lifetime movie. My husband was arrested, booked for disturbing the peace in non-compliance with HOA enforcement. We spent 2 days getting him released. And Karen? She sent us a violation notice the next morning, in bold. Reckless behavior on common grounds. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that my husband had recorded everything. Not just that day, every petty fine, every threatening email, every HOA meeting where she magically secured unanimous votes. He had built a file. Because as it turns out, a man who's navigated Middle East diplomacy and top secret intelligence knows how to handle a suburban tyrant. And Karen? She was about to find out what happens when you point a gun at the wrong damn lawn. You ever heard of someone getting fined for a patriotic wind chime? Yeah, that happened. After the whole gun on the lawn situation, you'd think Karen might have backed off, maybe issued an apology, or at the very least, checked in to see if my husband was traumatized. Nope. The very next morning, she was in our driveway with a camera and a copy of the HOA bylaws in her perfectly manicured claws. Section 3.7, she chirped, no personal decor that produces sound may hang from eaves or porches. She was talking about a wind chime. Red, white, and blue. A gift from my husband's old Navy unit. It barely made a sound unless you count the gentle ding-ding when the breeze hits just right. We were fined $7 plus $10 a day until we removed it. My husband, God bless him, didn't say a word. He walked back into the garage, shut the door, and started organizing a stack of manila folders labeled Phase 2. See, Karen didn't just love rules, she weaponized them. She had rewritten half the HOA regulations during the last 3 years. And you know how she got the votes? Easy. 1, proxy voting abuse. She'd show up at elderly neighbors' doors with homemade cookies and a pen. Mind if I submit your ballot for you? 2, special meetings at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. You know, when most people were working or, living their lives. 3, bending the rules for her favorites. That guy down the street with 3 flamingos in his yard? Totally fine. But my garden gnome? Visual pollution. She even created something called the Compliance Spotlight newsletter, a passive-aggressive little flyer that named homeowners who need guidance on aesthetic standards. Guess who was on the cover for 3 months straight? Now here's what Karen didn't know. My husband spent 6 years doing counterintelligence for the U.S. Navy. He once uncovered a mole embedded inside a French embassy. You think he couldn't figure out what Karen was up to? He started slow, pulled old meeting minutes, scanned neighborhood group chats, FOIA'd, Freedom of Information Act, the incorporation papers for Maple Grove HOA. And that's when things got real interesting. Turns out, Karen's nephew Kyle, the wannabe cop who pointed a gun at my husband, was never actually hired through a vote. The board never approved it. Karen had fudged the minutes, typed up her own version of the meeting notes, and called it ratified. Not only that, she'd funneled nearly $6,200 in safety fees to Kyle over 6 months. For reference, our HOA budget for community landscaping was only $4,000. She was paying more for pretend police than for the trees. My husband requested a formal HOA hearing. Karen tried to cancel it last minute, citing lack of quorum. He showed up anyway, so did 34 homeowners. He brought a 3-ring binder, a laser pointer, and a thermos of black coffee like he was giving a TED Talk on suburban tyranny. Slide 1. Unauthorized security hire payroll violations. Slide 2. Vote manipulation, 17 illegally submitted proxies. Slide 3. A personal enrichment from fines. Where did 19,600 go? You could hear the silence in the room settle like fog. And Karen, she sat there in her power blazer, clutching her clipboard like a Bible at a revival. But her eyes were darting, that she knew it was over, until, "That information is private, it's slanderous," she hissed. And then someone from the back, old Mr. Chandler, a Korean war vet who once yelled at a squirrel for 20 minutes, stood up and said, "You pointed a gun at a Navy SEAL mowing his lawn, Karen. You want to talk about slander?" The room erupted. After that meeting, Karen tried to save face. She issued a temporary stepping down notice, blaming personal stress and menopause. Yes, she actually wrote that in an official HOA email. Then she tried to call for a closed-door vote to reassign herself emergency authority due to unrest. But my husband had already filed paperwork to request an emergency audit and oversight by the county HOA board, which until that moment, none of us knew existed. He also quietly sent everything, every file, email, and video, to a local investigative journalist. And here's the best part. Kyle's little stunt with the gun? Yeah, he forgot that the body cam he wore, for intimidation, was recording the whole time. At first, people didn't know what to believe. Karen had ruled with fear and cupcakes for years. Some neighbors were still convinced my husband was too intense. Former military types. They're always so serious. But then the emails leaked, and then the payments. And then Karen's alternative financial ledger, a Word doc labeled Personal Notes Do Not Share, was published in the local paper. Turns out, she wasn't just fining people unfairly. She was using HOA funds to pay for Botox, coded as administrative wellness, take a leadership retreat to Palm Springs, only she attended, and buy matching uniforms for the HOA board, which never arrived because she ordered them from a cosplay site in Belarus. Neighbors turned fast. Even the flamingo guy, you'd think after being publicly exposed for misuse of HOA funds, vote manipulation, and hiring her nephew to play fake cop with a loaded weapon, Karen would lay low. But no, she doubled down. Because when some people get caught, they get humble. Karen, she gets creative. And when I say creative, I mean she pulled off what I now refer to as the bleach cart incident of 2023. But we'll get to that. After the scandal broke, the neighborhood was split clean down the middle. You had Team Justice, people like us, who were tired of the fines, the fake authority, the HOA newsletters that read like propaganda pamphlets. And then there was the cult of Karen, mostly her inner circle of Chardonnay, warriors, lawn sign fanatics, and folks whose identities were tied to being vice chair of the trash bin committee. They still believed she was misunderstood. They said my husband's campaign to remove her was aggressive and borderline militant. Yes, someone actually called him militant for sending out meeting agendas in a spreadsheet. It was like our street had turned into a Cold War suburb. Neighbors who used to exchange banana bread stopped making eye contact. 1 week after the meeting, a new flyer showed up in every mailbox, printed on that fancy glossy cardstock only Karen insisted we use. Community safety alert. Certain residents are engaging in intimidation tactics and unauthorized surveillance. These actions will not be tolerated. All community members are reminded that violations will be met with maximum penalties. HOA President, acting. Karen D. Tinsley. She bolded her own name. Right below that was a list of new emergency amendments. No security cameras allowed unless approved by the HOA. All lawn maintenance must be registered 48 hours in advance. Loud military-style clothing was prohibited on common grounds. We think that one was aimed directly at my husband's Navy ball cap. She was out for revenge, and not just through policy. It was a quiet Wednesday morning. Sun was shining, birds chirping. I had just made coffee when I heard the unmistakable whir of a golf cart engine approaching. Karen loved that cart, wrapped it in custom HOA decals, mounted a tiny flag that said President on Patrol. Yes, really. She pulled up next door to the Johnsons, sweet couple in their 70s, big fans of our dog, patriotic to the core. They had joined Team Justice after Karen fined them $150 for leaving their porch light on overnight without cause. Karen marched up to their flower bed with what looked like a gallon jug of bleach. My husband and I watched from the kitchen window, jaws slack. She poured it directly onto their rose bushes. Not even subtle, like she was watering them with poison. The Johnsons came out shouting. Karen spun some story about removing invasive species and groundskeeper discretion under emergency code. She fled the scene in her cart, bleach jug half empty, as we stood there filming the entire thing. We posted the video, no voiceover, no music, just raw footage, Karen in her cart, Karen with the bleach, Karen running like a guilty Scooby-Doo villain. It went viral in the local Facebook group. Then it got shared on Reddit under r fuck HOAs. The comments were savage. She's 2 HOA violations away from a Netflix doc. This is why we can't have nice things. Karen pours bleach on them. Where's the FBI when you need them? The Johnsons filed charges for property damage. We filed for a formal emergency vote to remove Karen from office. We needed 2/3 of the neighborhood. She knew it, and she wasn't going down without one last tantrum. The week before the vote, she locked everyone out of the HOA website, posted a new homepage that read, "Due to ongoing security threats, all communication must go through the HOA president directly." She removed the calendar, erased meeting notes, and deleted the community photo gallery, which ironically was 90% pictures of her at ribbon cuttings. She replaced it with a pixelated JPG of an eagle and the words order, pride, compliance. At this point, even her own allies started backing away slowly. We held the vote on a Friday evening at the community clubhouse. Karen showed up late, wearing a red power suit and sunglasses, indoors, like a political thriller villain. She brought Kyle, her nephew, who now claimed he was retraining as a paralegal. Sure, the tension was thick. People lined up with their ballots. Some whispered. Some wore buttons that said, "Restore sanity to Maple Grove." We got the count. 68% voted for removal. She was out. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just stood up and said, "This is a mistake. You'll all regret it." And then she left, muttering something about consulting legal counsel and taking this to Channel 7. Karen had been voted out. The bleach cart was parked. Kyle had apparently enrolled in an online paralegal course run out of a strip mall in Tallahassee. The neighborhood was quiet again, suspiciously quiet. Too quiet. Because if there's one thing I've learned in 38 years of marriage, 5 deployments, and 1 HOA meltdown, it's this. Karen never leaves quietly. It started the following Saturday, early morning. My husband and I were having coffee on the porch, enjoying the strange new luxury of peace and silence, until we heard the buzz. It wasn't a bee. It wasn't a lawnmower. It was a drone. Not just any drone, a big one. Black, 4-bladed, with a little blinking red light underneath, and what appeared to be a Bluetooth speaker duct taped to the bottom. It hovered about 12 feet above our property line, facing our house like it was on surveillance duty. Then, over the speaker, in crackly digital audio, we heard the unmistakable voice of Karen. "Attention homeowner, you are in violation of Code 12B. Unauthorized wind ornament detected. Please remove the item within 24 hours to avoid penalty. My husband looked at me. I looked at him. And then we both started laughing so hard, I nearly dropped my coffee. The next day, the drone came back. This time it followed the Johnsons while they were walking their Shih Tzu. The speaker blared, "Loose leash alert, community protocol violation, please secure your animal." By Wednesday, the drone had made 5 full loops around the neighborhood, announcing random infractions. Your trash bin is too visible from the street. Excess mulch detected in public view. Holiday-themed welcome mat out of season. The whole neighborhood was fed up. Kids threw tennis balls at it. One guy tried to shoot it down with a BB gun, missed every time. But no one knew where it was coming from, until my husband tracked it home. Remember how I said my husband used to do counterintelligence? Let's just say he still has the skills. He borrowed a signal tracker from one of his Navy buddies and followed the drone's return path. Guess where it landed? Karen's garage. Yes, Karen had been using a drone she purchased with HOA funds. We later confirmed it was listed as infrastructure technology upgrade to run a surveillance and intimidation campaign after being voted out. She claimed it was a hobby. She said she was testing noise levels for a local college project. She said her First Amendment rights were being stifled. Yeah, okay, but the cherry on top? The drone's memory card had footage going back months, including private backyards, a couple skinny dipping in their hot tub, yikes, and a recorded HOA meeting where Karen whispered to Kyle, "Once we get rid of the seal, we'll be back in control, watch." Oops, we called an emergency town hall. Not HOA, no, that ship had sunk. This was bigger. The county community board got involved. Legal reps, real press, local Channel 4 news. They brought a reporter named Vicky who wears pink blazers and delivers exposés like she's auditioning for Dateline. We presented it all. The drone footage, the HOA fund misappropriation, her continued interference despite being voted out, the intimidation, the bleach. And then my husband stood up in full Navy dress uniform, the same uniform he wore when he received his final medal. He looked Karen dead in the eyes and said, "I served this country for 25 years. You ran a cul-de-sac like it was North Korea. This ends now." Applause, standing ovation. Even Vicky from Channel 4 clapped. Karen, she turned bright red, muttered something about harassment and defamation, then tried to leave. That's when the county board handed her a cease and desist order, followed by a formal investigation notice from the State Housing Authority. In the days that followed, everything unraveled. The HOA bank account was frozen. Kyle was charged with impersonating a security officer and unauthorized weapon use. Karen was served civil suits by 3 homeowners, including the Johnsons, and investigated for wire fraud. Turns out, she'd been using HOA money to pay for her Etsy store fees. She tried to rally her old followers, but they had gone full, "We barely knew her." The Flamingo guy even started a neighborhood Facebook group called Karen Free Grove. As for Karen, she moved. Quietly, at night, her house was listed by owner. No agent wanted to touch the mess. The drone? We mounted it in the community clubhouse like a war trophy. The wind chime? Still hanging proudly on our porch. Neighbors talk again. The Johnsons planted new rose bushes. The community helped pay for them. My husband now chairs the new HOA Ethics Committee, which meets monthly and includes cookies, actual bylaws, and zero insanity. And me? I'm writing this from a rocking chair on our freshly painted porch, sipping sweet tea, watching kids ride bikes with streamers down the same street that used to feel like a war zone. Karen tried to turn this neighborhood into her kingdom, but she forgot. Kingdoms fall. And out here, we vote. Just like that, the woman who once tried to fine me $50 for patio furniture that doesn't match the HOA aesthetic vanished like a bad hair dye in the rain. No goodbye, no apology, not even a passive-aggressive newsletter farewell. She moved out under the cover of dusk. Her for sale by owner sign popped up on a Monday. By Tuesday, she was gone. By Wednesday, a neighbor mowed the strip of grass in front of her house for the first time in 6 years. And just like that, the birds came back. Karen's departure didn't magically fix everything. Her HOA legacy was like glitter in a carpet. It took time to clean. There were backlogged appeals, confusing double-billed fines, disputed budget items labeled Emotional hardship compensation? Don't ask. And one poor guy still on probation for aggressive Halloween decor. But the new interim board, led by my husband, jumped in like the cleanup crew after a county fair. They held open-door meetings, brought donuts, a shocking and immediate win, published clear financial records, and repealed 37 out of Karen's 42 custom amendments, including no tinsel after January 5th. It's funny how fast things grew once Karen was gone. The Johnsons replanted their roses, deeper this time, with community help and donated soil. The Fergusons replaced the welcome mat that Karen called tacky. Mr. Chandler, the Korean War vet who once threatened to sue a squirrel, built a new birdhouse and named it the Sanctuary. And my husband? He finally got to finish the garden he started 2 years ago. He planted tomatoes, basil, even a few jalapenos. Neighbors started walking over, dropping off seeds and stories. One Vietnam vet gave him an heirloom watermelon seed he'd kept in a pill bottle for 20 years. Turns out community can grow once you stop stomping on it with policy boots. Our new HOA board, yes, we kept it, not all HOAs are evil, turns out, was built on 3 simple principles. 1. Transparency. Every vote, every rule, every Twitter. 2. Compassion over control. Guidelines, not gotchas. 3. No family members on payroll. Kyle, this one's for you. And get this, people actually enjoyed the meetings. There was laughter, light debate. Someone even brought banana pudding to the July session, and it got passed like communion. Remember Vicky from Channel 4? She came back 3 months later for a Where Are They Now segment. We gave her a tour of the neighborhood, the freshly painted fences, no required shades this time, the new community garden, the drone mounted in the clubhouse under a plaque that read, "Lest we forget, the Battle of Maple Grove Airspace, 2023. She interviewed residents, filmed the garden, and ended the segment with a shot of my husband and me, sipping tea on the porch while our dog snored at our feet. Vicky turned to the camera and said, "Justice in the suburbs may not come with sirens or courtrooms, but sometimes it shows up in a rocking chair and a wind chime." One morning, a few weeks after Karen left, we got a letter in the mail. No return address, neatly typed. It read, "I was wrong. I let fear and power cloud what little judgment I had. I never should have allowed things to go that far. I'm truly sorry." Signed, K. It wasn't enough to erase what happened, but it was something. My husband folded the letter, didn't say much, and tucked it into a box marked Service Memories, right next to his discharge papers and a photo of his unit in Kandahar. I asked why he kept it. He smiled and said, "Because sometimes even the worst battles deserve a record." Life is quieter now, not boring, just peaceful. We have weekly potlucks on the green where the old HOA podium used to be. Someone put fairy lights in the trees. The new HOA bylaws are a whopping 2 pages long, double-spaced. Even the flamingo guy added a little sign to his yard art that says, "Approved by common sense, not Karen." And when we sit outside these days, we don't look over our shoulders for drones. We look at stars, at neighbors, at the lives we get to live freely, finally. Well, we learned that a wind chime can be a battle flag, that peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the presence of respect, that sometimes the quiet ones, the gardeners, the porch sitters, are the ones who will stand up when it counts, and that justice might not wear a uniform, but it knows how to mow a lawn. Let's get one thing straight right up front. An HOA is not a kingdom. Your clipboard isn't a crown. And enforcing grass height rules at gunpoint doesn't make you a patriot. It makes you a problem. So if you're watching this and you're on an HOA board, or maybe just one vote away from turning into the next Karen, here's what this whole saga taught us. Karen didn't fail because she was strict. She failed because she used rules to control, not to serve. True leadership in a community means listening more than you speak, helping instead of humiliating, and realizing that your neighbor's flagpole probably isn't a personal attack on your HOA legacy. If your bylaws require measuring mulch with a ruler, maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't the mulch. There's nothing wrong with keeping a neighborhood clean and orderly. But the moment you stop seeing people and only start seeing violations, you've lost the plot. Your job isn't to turn your neighborhood into a gated fiefdom. It's to make sure Mrs. Lopez at the end of the cul-de-sac doesn't get fined $100 because her grandson left his scooter on the lawn for 6 minutes. Ask yourself this: would you fine your own mother for planting daisies too close to the sidewalk? If the answer is yes, well, you might be Karen. Karen thought my husband, quiet, polite, pushing a mower, was just another retiree she could walk over. What she didn't know was that he'd served in 3 active war zones, dealt with foreign spies, and kept every single HOA notice ever sent, filed, dated, and cross-referenced. The truth is, the people you try to control might be the same people who once protected your right to run your bake sale committee in the first place. So maybe don't point a weapon at them over lawn length. Karen's worst crime wasn't the drone or the bleach or even the fake fines. It was how she made people feel. She made good neighbors feel like criminals. She turned a quiet retirement community into a courtroom. She made people afraid to plant, decorate, wave flags, or hang wind chimes. People remember how you treat them when you're in charge. And trust me, they remember it long after you've been voted out. This neighborhood didn't heal because of a vote. It healed because people planted flowers together, because we stopped seeing each other as compliant or non-compliant and started seeing each other as, shocker, neighbors. Turns out kindness spreads faster than fines. And smiles on the porch go a lot further than clipboards in the driveway. Have you ever dealt with a Karen-style HOA? Or maybe you're on an HOA board and trying to do better than the last guy? Drop a comment below. What's the craziest rule your HOA ever tried to enforce? What would your dream neighborhood look like? Or just say hi, we love hearing from you. Let's get the conversation going, because real change starts with real stories. And hey, if this story made you laugh, sigh, or shake your head, share it with a friend who's ever been told their mailbox was too whimsical. HOAs can be good. They can keep neighborhoods clean, safe, and even beautiful. But the minute they forget they exist to serve, not rule, is the minute they lose what matters most: community. So plant the flowers, wave the flag, and for heaven's sake, let the wind chimes ring. Because the sound of a good neighborhood shouldn't be fear. It should be laughter, music, and maybe, just maybe, the hum of a lawnmower on a quiet Saturday morning.